We are 2 days away from the start of the NFL draft. The draft board is set, and we heard from John Elway on Tuesday. Here are the top 3 takeaways from his press conference. I'm Phil Milani alongside Matt Boyer. Matt, let's start with the quarterback position. John had a few things to say about that.
Yeah, the first thing I thought was interesting was the fact that he said Joe Flacco, a young 34. This is the second or third time we've heard this from John Elway this offseason. Very impressed with what Joe was able to show in that voluntary minicamp. Also, the fact that John is planning to add quarterback talent to that room, wants to enter camp with 4 quarterbacks. So no real surprise there. That's usually what the Broncos kind of end up around. So whether that be through the draft, possibly, but he didn't rule out bringing in a veteran either. So something to kind of take note of. And then John's anecdote about the 1992 NFL draft, about Tommy Maddox being drafted, because John didn't necessarily see it the same way that Broncos management did back then.
Yeah, that came up because he was asked about Flacco's comments a couple of weeks ago.
I want to get this team to be the best it is with me at the quarterback position. So obviously that's not the most importance to draft a quarterback. But if we do, that's completely out of my control. I'm going to go out here and I'm going to compete, and he's going to have to come out here and be on the field with me every day too. So
John said he liked that because John himself was in a very similar position when the Broncos brought in Maddox.
John had a great anecdote about 1992. He was at DIA at the baggage claim.
And we needed a wideout. I said, oh, Pickens must have been gone. He didn't go until the second round.
Well, were you upset?
Sure. Yeah. How'd that work out?
And it was great seeing John's competitive side come out a little bit in this press conference. It came out again a second time when talking about Chris Harris Jr.'s contract situation.
This has been an issue for the Broncos fan base, probably more so than John. I think that just because Chris is such a beloved player and fans want to see him back, I think the Broncos want to see him back too. But
we're busy with the draft, and we'll talk about Chris. He's on the contract, and so we'll talk about that when the draft's over.
John, a couple of years ago.
But I just want you to say something. When I say this, I said we're going to talk about it. That doesn't mean we're going to do anything.
So after the draft, they'll address it.
Yep.
I think that, that's probably the best way to approach things.
John, though, did make it a point to say, hey, we are going to approach the situation, but by no means does that mean that something's going to happen. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out here in the next couple of weeks with Chris Harris Jr. Yep. The third takeaway from Elway's press conference was that he said he plans on adding competition at the wide receiver position and also interior offensive line.
A lot of unknowns in that interior offensive line position just because Ron Leary, you don't really know how he's going to respond from the injury. Elijah Wilkinson and Sam Jones, both very young players. So you want to add some talent to that room if you can. The big thing for me, though, was the fact that John had mentioned, I want wide receiver competition. I think that it's going to be very interesting, though, to see how quickly Emmanuel Sanders comes back.
Says he feels good. You never know. So we're hoping, if there's anybody that can come back, it can be him. So that's why, I feel good about where he is. We're going to add more for camp, and hopefully we bring in a lot more competition there too, and find a couple of gems there would be nice.
He feels good about Emmanuel Sanders, but the fact that the Broncos can add more weapons to put around Joe Flacco in the draft or in that CFA undrafted portion of the signing period after Saturday, I think would be a huge bolster to Coach Azzani and those guys in that room.
Yeah, and we saw it during the minicamp. I mean, wide receiver 1 and 2 were Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, so we need to add a little bit of depth there at that position. All right, those are the top 3 takeaways on this Tuesday from John Elway's press conference. That's going to do it for us. For Matt Boyer, I'm Phil Milani.